More to Marketing.
Welcome to More to Marketing, the podcast that explores marketing, product, and everything business. I'm your host, Susan, and today we're talking about what is e-commerce CRO process and how can understanding it help marketers. Today I have a very special guest, Ilan. He is a professional and e-commerce expert who specializes in growing revenue and profit. And I have to say he does an absolutely fabulous, fantastic job. I've seen him myself. He has a passion for building up the understanding of data and businesses to make smarter decisions. He really does do everything in the digital space here, I've got to say. Digital conversion is his game, and he is a top performer when you want to engage. So welcome, Ilan.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're up to right now, and what you do in the digital space.
I am an independent e-commerce advisor and also have a boutique CRO e-commerce agency which started to grow. So we help mainly direct to consumer e-commerce businesses grow their conversion rate and essentially the main goal there is to get more revenue and profit from the same amount of traffic by improving the user experience. So we do that in a few ways. Probably we're going to touch on a few of those during the session today. So that's the main thing that I'm working on. And then I do just a little bit of independent consulting, more growth advice consulting for e-commerce businesses, where I'm not just looking at their CRO, but a lot of different things. Might be looking at their product roadmap, could be helping them with their email, just trying to understand what the right thing is that they should be working on depending on the growth stage they are at in their e-commerce business.
Fantastic. And I do know you have a huge pedigree in this as well, from working with some of the biggest telcos in Australia through to some of the smaller businesses that need help. So you've got that really vast experience across all different business types to help to make their revenue better with the same amount of money for marketing spend.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point. I think what conversion rate optimization or any sort of growth, what it looks like, just so dependent. What you should invest in, what you should focus on is so dependent on the industry you're in, but also just the stage that your business is at. We kind of often talk about in e-commerce, you talk about 3 stages. There's a growth stage, a build stage, and a scale stage, broadly, to try and categorize it into 3 steps. And I've done quite a few different things. I spent most of my career at Optus doing a lot of different marketing roles. Before I got into e-commerce, it was a bit more traditional marketing, working as a product manager and go to market, and then got into digital and did e-commerce, and then also worked in our app space as well, which was quite good, but I always loved e-commerce. And so I had a couple of side hustles during that time. So all sorts of different things, selling Kindles on eBay and importing football jerseys. I had a part share in a soccer shop because that's always been a passion of mine,
Nice.
So that's been quite good because you do start to see how things look really differently at the enterprise level. And then of course, what things look like when you're starting and scaling, which it's all hard. And there's always a long list of things to do. It's just the type of challenges and how you allocate your resources looks really, really different all the way through. But yeah, it's really enjoyable. I think a lot of great brands out there in Australia, and people are really focused on their product, and they're very, very good at that and their marketing proposition. But then it's like, how do I bring that to life with my marketing on my website? So it's something I really, really enjoy doing.
And I think that's one thing a lot of people just assume, that when you build a website, people will come. They don't realize how much of an art there is behind there. So let's talk a bit about that in our podcast today.
Let's do it.
And let's actually go right down to the basics, all right?
Okay.
Can you briefly explain what CRO, which is the conversion rate optimization, is and why it's important for e-commerce businesses?
Great question. It is a term that everyone has heard about it, but like you could ask 5 people and get 5 different answers, I think, often. I think at its core, and I like to call it traditional CRO, is A/B testing. So that is where we've got, let's just take a very simple example. You want to test a new homepage design, and so you launch 2 versions. You could launch 3 versions, but typically you would launch 2 versions and you split test and you you monitor the metrics and you get to statistical significance, which is very powerful because then you can say absolutely this version is better. So this is really, really important when we talk about data-driven decisions. We're not so often with the website in particular, it's often opinion-based, external
Mm.
opinions, internal opinions. It's hard to know if something works, and what CRO does is allow you to to answer that question. And of course, when you see a conversion rate increase, that's really translating to the bottom line as well. So that's what most people think of, and that is traditionally what CRO is, but there's a bit of a process to that before you get to that point. And I think that's some of the things that maybe I can talk to as well, which is so powerful, is how do I figure out what to test? How do I do the research before I actually start testing and making changes?
And I think that whole about what to test and how to test
Mm,
would stumble a lot of people. They would just assume, oh, I'll just change the whole picture here. They don't think about all the other elements that could be on that site, from the font, the color,
mm,
even what the button is. I've had the privilege of working with Ilan, and I remember seeing one of the split tests that you did do in the past, which was literally the color of the buy now button,
mm, mm.
and the statistical difference of those two colors that were put out there. One of them you would have thought would have worked because it was on brand, but it
Mm.
was actually the other color that really drove all the conversions. And that's something that people might not even think about, is changing the color on their button to say buy now because they're too fixated on brand colors.
Yes, it's it's a classic that gets spoken about a bit, changing colors or making minor things.
Mm.
One thing I would say is that sort of thing is really when you've got a lot of traffic, um,
Mm.
but it is very powerful. A few things to touch on there. It often what I like to talk to people about is conversion focused design. Now, your brand and aesthetics are still critical. At the end of the day, there's a person on the other side of the computer, and how they feel when they're looking at your brand and the importance of your brand assets are part of that experience. So we can't move too far away from that. But where A/B testing does help, there are things out there that perhaps someone in the marketing or brand department will say, this is off brand. But
Mm.
is it really? And are we willing to box ourselves in a way where we're restricting the options to grow the business? In the example you mentioned just there. So it can be very, very powerful, particularly in enterprise businesses where you've got a lot of traffic and those small changes, like typically if someone buys your product, it's not because of the color button, but the color button has drawn their attention and just made it easier to purchase. And so it does have an impact. It might be minor, but when you're in a business with millions, billions of dollars of revenue, even a tiny little uplift from doing that test can have a huge difference. And I think that's why it's good for businesses, because you can say to people, we're just testing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't worry, we're not changing the brand. Like, and that's where CRO is powerful as well, because it allows not just people working on the website to innovate, but other parts of the business to try new ideas and actually test them with real customers on your website. I mean, that's where really we're getting true customer feedback. We have clicks and we have some intent from customers maybe on ads, but the website, they've come to the website, there's real customers there. So we can really test things not only in terms of, yes, we want to purchase, but just as an example, say we're thinking of a new headline, like
Mm.
change the headline on the website and test it. And that headline might give some insight to other areas of the business as well. So it becomes quite powerful in that way.
And one of the things I love is also the whole heat mapping.
Yes.
So, do you want to explain what heat mapping is for everyone as
Yes,
well?
yes. And if you like, I can touch on the different types of research because there is a few that we use when we're essentially trying to get ourselves into the shoes of our customer. And heat maps are such a great tool in order to do that. So they can show us a few things. People talk about this umbrella term heat maps, but underneath that, there's a few different types of heat maps, or what I would just say are visual tools that are showing you how your user is interacting with your site. And so the first one is a scroll map, which is fantastic. So that shows you how where people drop off on the page, what percentage of the page people are seeing, and how many people see it. It's always an eye opener. Of
Mm,
course, we know that, okay, 100% of people see the top of the page and people do drop off, but I recommend anyone listening to put a heat map on their page. There's a lot of great tools out there. There's a free one called Microsoft Clarity. It's not, I'm not partnership with them. I just like to recommend it because it's free.
yep, it's a
There's
good
others
testing
like,
tool. Yep.
yeah, put it on, and I think you'll be surprised at what you see, how quickly people drop off on some of your big pages. So you think, and this is where with CRO, we want to use data and get as close as possible to the customer. So instead of a team sitting around in an office saying, I think people are going to see this, and we're going to lay out the page, it's like, let's really understand what people are seeing. So there's your scroll map, which is what people are looking at. Then things get interesting when you look at a click map. So that then shows you how people are clicking. Some software have what's called a like a mouse map. So that actually shows how the mouse is moving across the page.
Creepy.
So all
Yep.
these, pardon?
It's that one's the kind of the creepy one for me.
Yeah,
In case you're like
it's
thinking to go there, but you don't actually click it, and you move it back, and but then they know.
yeah, well then the next level of that is session recordings, which I tell people, don't worry, no one's looking at you, looking at looking at the website. It shows the complete customer journey. So from the minute you see the page they land on, and you can see them where they're clicking, where they're scrolling. So it's always fascinating. It's so interesting. And that tool, Microsoft Clarity, has just introduced a great feature, which one of the problems with session recordings, it takes a lot of time to watch. But so they've introduced a feature which has AI. It watches the recordings for you in a way,
Ooh.
and then it gives you a summary and tells you what to go look at. So instead of sitting there for an hour looking at 20 recordings, it gives you a list and says, this happened on this recording, and then you can click in and just look at that section. So it helps you understand behavior from that perspective. So it's always fascinating. And so some of the things that we look for with heat maps, for example, you can look at dead clicks
Mm.
or rage clicks. So a dead click, for example, is when someone clicks on something that isn't clickable. So that tells us straight away, okay, what do we need to change here?
Yep.
We need
There's
to make that.
assumptions here.
Yeah, or there's rage clicks where people click on something quite a few times and don't get a response. Maybe there's a code error. And another one, which is quite good, are called quickbacks. So that's when someone clicks on a page and quickly goes back. It's almost
Oh.
like a bounce rate within the page. They're still on the site, but they've gone to a page and quickly gone back. And so when we see that, we're like, well, all of this is asking really good questions. Okay, why is this happening? And you can go in and try and come up with some solutions um, to help the customer on their journey.
And also it just helps to for you to optimize the site as well to get a
Mm.
better performance so the CX improves as well over time with all
Yeah,
these little
the two are
iterations. Mm.
exactly. That's right. The two are completely linked. User experiences is almost directly linked to is it's almost like the reporting number for conversion rate is almost the reporting number for how good your user experience is.
Mm. And what else if you're about to do CRO for the very first time? Heat maps is one
Hmm.
really great tool. Are there any other ones you think are really great for the beginning first discoveries?
In discovery phase, we're really looking to understand the customer. So we're looking for different types of research which help paint the picture. So of course there's Google Analytics. So that's the other main tool in terms of quant analysis, just getting some numbers because we can start to have a look at our funnel, see where people are dropping off, see how long people are spending on certain pages or not spending time on pages. So it helps to set the context before we start to review the site. Where on my site are there opportunities to improve across the purchase journey? So there are two places to start with your research, and then we want to do some qual research as well. How do we put some color around what's happening on the site? We have what's called a heuristic analysis, which is just guess a fancy way of saying just really going through the site with a fine-tooth comb
Mm.
and
Do the journey yourself.
exactly going through the journey end to hand. It's often important to have other people go through the journey. So often I do audits of sites, and within 5 minutes I've found something, and the client's like, I can't believe this was happening. And I'm like, that's okay. We all have blind spots in our business, and it's just often it's just getting some fresh eyes on there, and of course putting it in front of real customers. So
Mm.
with that qual research, putting the site in front of real customers, there's a lot of I really advocate for this, and I think people don't do enough of it because of some of the effort that it takes sometimes to do market research. But there's so many great tools out there now. Gone are the days of putting together a $5,000, $10,000 marketing research project, and we've got to go to this
Mm.
two-sided mirror and buy everyone pizza and sit in a room and figure out what's going on. There are online platforms there where I can recruit, like find participants in my demographic and send out, say, two designs that I want feedback on my website. I can get feedback on that from hundreds of people within 24 hours. Like, it's
Mm.
so easy and so affordable now. So that's the other thing that you really want to really try and do. The other really big one is surveys. And so you can have it on your site. You just have to be careful that it doesn't interrupt the journey too much. You can literally have surveys that pop up. Probably see this quite often, saying, can you find what you're looking for, or how is your user experience today? The other thing you can do is implement them in post-purchase, which is quite good. So at the checkout, while the
Mm.
experience is still fresh in their mind, you're asking them some detailed questions about what they could find, what they couldn't find, just really trying to understand where the opportunities are. So that's the best place to start, is really figuring out what's going on with your customers.
I think one of the biggest tips that I've ever come across is if you are a business and you're employing new staff members, on the very first couple of days of orientation, get them to go through the whole site, the
Yes,
whole journey.
yes. Purchase the product, get it
Mm.
shipped. Like, absolutely.
I think that's one thing that a lot of places don't do, but you need to really understand the consumer journey to then be able to recommend improvements and potential new products or services, or how to improve conversion rates and everything like that. And unless you've actually gone through the journey, how can you actually say that that will work or won't work?
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm. Now, how does improving that user experience that we just talked about, the UX, impact conversion rates? Have you got any examples you're able to share?
Yeah, yeah. Where it's directly linked, as I said. When we have a good experience and customers are happy, they're doing one of three things on a e-commerce website. Generally, they're navigating across pages, they're browsing specific content, images, copy, watching videos, and if that all works really well and they're having a good experience, then they purchase, and then the conversion rate goes up. So what that actually looks like, I might give you like two examples on either side of either end of the spectrum, kind of
Perfect.
similar to what you mentioned in terms of a button color, but a test I ran back at Optus was for mobile people purchasing on mobile. You had to put in your phone number while you were going through the process. And when you did that, it showed a full keyboard.
Mm,
We changed that experience just to show a number pad because all we needed were digits.
makes sense.
And that increased the conversion rate by a couple of percentage points, which again, just coming back to enterprise, when you have a lot, when it's quite large numbers, like makes a
Significant.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
just changing that, uh, which was a relatively small change for the developer. It wasn't massive. He just needed to tweak a few things to ask the UI to do that, and had this uplift. So it's quite powerful. But we couldn't get to that without watching what was happening with customers and looking at the data and saying, hold on a second, people are dropping off at this point. Let's have a look at the
mm,
screen. Hold on a second. It's a bit tricky to put the phone number in correctly and do all this at this step. So that's like an example of a minor optimization. And there's so many of those when you go with a fine-tooth comb and look for those little bits and pieces, as you said, as a real customer. On the uh, other end of the scale, a test that was really successful, we did a full product page redesign with a client, but we didn't just jump to the design phase. I think that's often what happens. A brief comes in from
mm,
someone talking about the product. It goes to a designer. They might look at some competitors, and a really nice page, but a lot of the perhaps analytics and research gets missed. And was very happy because this client allowed us to do this. It was for a arthritis cream product, and the current product page, it just wasn't explaining the benefits. It wasn't showing testimonials, which is so important.
Oh,
All the
yeah.
sorts of things that are so important, particularly when you're buying something for your health. And so we went through the proper process with research and completely transformed the page. It looked really different to a standard e-commerce page. We showed images of the target market. There were so many different things that were really well thought out across the page. And we did a A/B test, and the uplift was like 40% on the
Wow.
conversion rate. It was massive. And I will say to anyone listening, that is very, very rare to see uplifts of that. But we definitely saw why it was a winner. Um, but it can happen. And if you go through that, we're very lucky because the client allowed us to really do the analytics. And then I worked with an excellent designer and developer who really understood what we were trying to do with the page. And we just kind of worked together on the execution to get those results.
I think that the key takeout there is understand your audience to be able to marry that in with what the data is telling you so you can make
Mm.
those informed decisions. Because otherwise, if you just went off and go, okay, I'm just going to look at the competitor, they must know the audience. You may not have gotten that same result of the 40% uplift.
Yeah, I just laugh because so it's so true because we we sit around internally and say the competitors are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know that it's working? We don't. They're probably sitting around saying the same thing, looking at
Yep,
you. And so that's all that so that you're right. It's you get inspiration from competitors.
definitely.
But I think sometimes people often copy, and it's not about copying. Everything needs to come through, as you say, back through your brand and your customers and your value proposition. And we're talking a lot of marketing terms here, and I think that's something I say to people. Conversion rate optimization, I see it as part of a marketing discipline but it sits we're living on your website and we have more data. But at the end of the
Mm.
day, it's like, do I know my customer? Do I know my product? And then like, how am I explaining how the two are linked? How am I helping customers with my product? And when you do that job really well with a whole lot of tactics and techniques, that's when customers respond.
Exactly. And that's exactly why I've got my podcast that talks about marketing, product, and business, because
Mm,
you can't have one of them without the other one. They
yep.
are all interlinked.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And that's why it's great to get understandings and learnings from people like yourself and see how things actually do meld in with each other for your businesses to succeed.
Yep.
Now, I'd love to know a bit more about how you use research to better understand the customer behaviors and preferences in CRO. So, you've touched on some of them. What else can you share with us?
I think I did spend I mentioned a little bit about if you're starting off the type of research that you can do. So those are the key elements. One other one I love to do is sentiment analysis.
Mm.
So what we can do is understand, we can look at reviews. So we have all this customer feedback. That's what we're trying to do, just in any type of way, get our hands on as much customer feedback as we can. So reviews are fantastic.
Yep.
And then the other one, which is always interesting, is web chat transcripts. So what's different probably about this is I now have AI to do the heavy lifting. So
Mm.
say for reviews, we want to understand how people use our product or some issues they might have and address those concerns up front. So we can then put that information on the product page. So that's really valuable. But how do I find those reviews? There can be a lot. But now what I can do is I can just export them in a spreadsheet, put them in ChatGPT, and
Mm-hmm.
I can ask ChatGPT, tell me how are people using my product? Like it can do it for you at bulk in a few minutes. It's so powerful. So, and we want to look equally at our negative reviews and our positive reviews and what we can learn from them. And often I find things in reviews which are passed to the marketing team because I tell them this headline because it's in the voice of customer.
Yeah.
What better way to sell to new customers than in the voice of the existing customers, the same target market who are advocating for your product? And some of the one-liners they come up with are just fantastic. They make for great headlines. Then, of course, with web chats, if someone is coming to a web chat and asking the same question over again, like we need to remove that friction, and that should probably
Mm-hmm.
live somewhere on the page as well. So doing that, and again, with AI, we can just ask it to pull out what are the most common complaints instead of sitting there reading hundreds of hours of transcripts. And an extension of looking at web chat is speaking to customer service staff or retail staff, the people on the front line speaking to customers every day. These guys, they have nuggets of gold because they're having that one-to-one
Yeah.
always, right? It's and I know, like in our days at Optus, like you'd see execs and we'd be encouraged to get on the phone and to spend
Yeah.
time in
Double
stores
jacking. Yep.
because you're getting, that's a challenge if you're in e-commerce, for example, or any digital business. We're sitting behind a computer all day. We're quite far removed from our customers. And so speaking to them and understanding how they talk about products, how they consider buying products, and
Mhm.
asking those people, the internal staff, retail or customer service, to look at your website as well and getting feedback because they're the ones probably closest to the customers than all of us. And so that's another great way to do the research. So there are a lot of the initial research that you do. Of course, what we want to try and encourage is a bit of a loop and a culture of experimentation and testing. So you do let's say you're starting, you do research, you implement, you test ideas. Now all those results from those tests is new research. It's new
Yep.
customer feedback, and then we kind of go back again and start all over again with those new insights, continuing to improve understanding of the customer.
I think the biggest thing to understand is you may not get everything right first time when you make changes. Sometimes you may have all the best intentions and the data's saying this and you put it in, and unfortunately, it doesn't yield the results you're hoping for. That's not a failure, that's a learning. And that's where you get more data from and then can move forward with this.
If you were a client, I'd be like high-fiving you right now. It's we have one of the things about CRO, we've got this winners and losers tests, winners and losers. Now, of course, we all want winners. We want
Mm.
to grow our business, but the losers are teaching you something. And also, equally important, they're de-risking changes. Just the example, let's say you're doing a website redesign, a completely new website, and you just decide, this happens. People just launch the website without any testing, and then the conversion rate dropped. Now imagine you tested some of those elements and some lost before. You've got this piece of information that we can't launch this, so you've de-risked going backwards, and that's what we often people make changes without any testing, and what A/B testing allows you to do, which is very important for bigger businesses because if you've got a higher revenue base, it allows you to make sure you don't introduce negative changes which can take you backwards. And what you say again, so great to hear. Like you've learned something about your customer. This is
Exactly.
this is some of the most direct customer feedback you can get when you run these tests. It's
Mm.
very black and white if something did or didn't work.
And one of the most fabulous tools I've seen when I used to help run some e-commerce sites, there's some tools that you can get that you can plug in, and then you can actually watch what's happening on your site live. And it
Yes.
looks like a little supermarket, and it's got all the aisles, and you can see when Johnny came in because Johnny's a logged in member and they've come before. You can even see Johnny's purchased 5 things in the last 20 days, and then what Johnny's got in his basket. And is he going to go forward with it? Is he removing things from the basket, adding more? But you have this added layer that you can actually talk to Johnny if you chose to. And I think that is just so powerful for certain different types of sites to be able to help consumers when there's a product or a service that may need that additional support for education.
Mhm.
Because yes, they're reading everything, but sometimes they may actually need to talk to a rep, but they don't want to
Mm.
start a chat, for example, unless it's a personalized chat. So there's definitely so many different ways. And yes, you get all the data from this as well. You can do some analytics on it as well to see how it works, if it is or isn't, and then you know a bit more about Johnny and people like Johnny.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Hotjar actually allows you to something similar
Mm.
to put up a survey or to ask someone, can you find what you're looking for? And that's good because you're matching, you're putting some qual data with the heat maps. You're seeing the clicking, but now you're actually putting a person or understanding what that person's trying to do. So you can understand like why did you click here? I'm trying to understand a little bit more about what's possible.
And I think also just diving back into your comment about talking to frontline staff, whether they
Mm.
are the call center, the people behind the chat, or even just retail faces. That is so important. And so many companies don't do that,
Hmm.
or it never gets to the decision makers that may be making the product or the
Mm.
service or the marketing.
Hmm.
So breaking down those silos is immensely important. I used to do that quite a lot. When I used to work at Optus myself, I'd go directly to my call center every quarter and
Yep.
go, can you get your reps to put through a list of all the great ideas they may have, no matter how big or small, and let me know how I could make their life easier and the customer's life easier. So then I was hitting both what was happening in the back end to help them alleviate from questions that they were getting or issues, and at the same time making the consumer journey better too.
Yeah. Everyone wins. Yeah. The insights from the front line is like a gold
Oh,
mine.
they are they're probably one of your best
Yep.
sources, if anything, because they're going to be so truthful and raw,
Yep.
better than my keyboard warrior chat stuff that you would read in the transcripts.
Got to be careful with those. Got to be careful with those.
Definitely. Now, what are some of the common challenges facing businesses when they're trying to optimize their conversion rates? And what do you reckon are some great ways to overcome those?
I really like this question. It can vary quite a lot at different types of businesses. I think overall, re regardless of the size of your business, it's the patience required sometimes for CRO is a big challenge, particularly in the current economic environment.
Mm,
People are looking for results. They're looking to get results quickly. A lot of a lot of business owners and executives are used to trying to find results from more direct marketing. For example, I put ads into Facebook and I get sales. Let's
yes.
do more of that. Let's do more of that. I run a discount and I get sales. Let's do more of that. I launch an above the line campaign and I get sales. Let's do more. They're used to that mindset with CRO. Even running a test off, unless you've got mounds of traffic, you generally want to run a test for 2 weeks because you want to go through a business cycle. And then, depending on the results, if it's still quite close, you might need to run it a little bit longer. And for a lot of people, that's when they feel that a site change is the one to make for whatever reason, they believe that. Often it comes from execs, and that's always a challenge where you have strong voices in the room who say, let's just make this change. To tell them that you might have to wait 2 weeks or a month is like they just like, what do you mean? We need to keep going. We need to move on to the next thing. And so the onus is then on the practitioner or someone internally to educate and explain why it is important and to also understand the goals of leadership. So explaining how this fits into your strategy. So I think a big part, well, I guess to come back to your question, in bigger business, it can be political, and getting ownership is a big challenge
Mm.
to show people that this works. And we're not always going to test, but some things we really should be going through this process properly. And by the way, some of the biggest companies in the world, I think Jeff Bezos has a very well-known quote around their success is, I'm paraphrasing, but their success is directly linked to the number of tests that they're able to run. Like at a
Mm.
certain point, this is the way that you optimize with real customers. So I think that's the two there I'd say is like getting into that mindset, the education of understanding how it works, and then getting traction and getting the resources to be able to do it properly. Some of the really the main challenges that I see.
100%. I agree with you on both those points. I think everyone's been in a situation where the business is just like, we can't wait. We want to move
Mm.
with this, make the decision now. Right or wrong, we'll support you, and then it's wrong, and then they don't. They
It's
forgot they ever said
funny
that.
that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I find that it could have been alleviated by just having that 1 or 2 weeks or whatever that business cycle happened to be. And that's one of the things that there's a risk sometimes associated with making any change. But if you make no change, then something eventually will go backwards over time because
Mm.
most of the time people won't keep coming. You need to bring in new audiences, you need to bring in new people, new innovations, or the competitors come in. So you can't stand still. And CRO is one of those powerful tools that can help you continuously up your game
Yep.
and innovate along the way.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself. Exactly right.
So tell me, what excites you the most about conversion rate optimization?
I really like it. As I said before, I kind of see it as, it is marketing on the website, and it is part of that customer journey. But it's exciting because it's probably as close as possible as you can get to real customer feedback. You're really at the pointy end in e-commerce. They're on the site. They're looking to make a purchase. So I think it's quite powerful in what's possible because on top of that, you've got access to a lot more data.
Mm.
So you can actually see what's going on across the site, and you control the website as well. So much of what we do in our marketing mix and our business mix is to an extent outside of our control. Who knows what Facebook's going to do with our algorithm? But here we
Mm.
have an opportunity with CRO to actually look at more data that we have available to us and make changes that can really impact the bottom line. So I enjoy that from a business perspective. What I also enjoy is the psychology around it. I think that's why I've spoken a lot about analytics and process because that's really important. But it is ultimately about selling online. And there's a lot of really interesting ways that you can do that and test
Mm.
online. Behavioral, if anyone's read anything about behavioral economics and nudges, that is a core part of CRO is when we get into the detail of the journey, what's all the little things that we can do to help customers. I heard of a really good one the other day on another another podcast actually where the guest. Um, I could put this in the show notes actually because I want to
Amazing.
make sure she gets the credit. But she spoke about when people shop online, they buy a lot of garments. They might buy three or four sizes of the same dress because they're not sure. And so what they did was introduce a little timer that says each dress takes 10 minutes to try on
Mm.
because the brand didn't want people buying four sizes because of the returns. And so
Yep.
that little nudge like completely changed the way people shopped. They
Yep.
still shopped, but didn't add as many. And then, of course, it made the returns easier. So it's kind of like an end-to-end benefit. So I think those things are always so fascinating to implement and actually put in the real world and see how you almost get to do all these little psychological experiments on people on your site, which is always, yeah, super fascinating.
I love that. And one of the ones that I'm wanting to see come to life as well, going along the fashion. Apparently, Australia Post in some of their locations is being contemplating. I don't know if they've done it or not. I read this article a little while ago. Put in a change room into
Mm,
some of their post offices. So when you go in and you get your package
yeah.
because you haven't been home, you can quickly run to the change room, try it on, and then return it straight away. And there's not the delay.
Yeah.
And my assumption there is because there's probably been a whole pile of people that haven't returned them within that week
Yep.
because Australia Post doesn't do as well as it used to a long time ago. It's in the news, everyone's aware of that. So therefore, they've probably got a higher complaint volume coming through from it being rejected. So this is probably a way that they're working with Australia Post to solve that issue.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And that's going to work. Yeah, that's just going to work so well for everyone.
Mm, exactly. It saves time. Hopefully, you don't have to queue up too
You
much
have to go back to the
either.
post office. The store gets their refunds back quicker. The customer gets their cash back quicker. Australia Post is probably easier for them as well. So it's kind of like winning across the whole process.
Exactly. And it's not like they've got garments for sale in these stray posts either. So there's not going to be that theft either when it comes to a lot of the fashion brands when
Good
people
point.
take so many things into the change rooms.
Yep.
So it's very interesting to see where that one will end up going to and marrying that with what you just said that this other brand is doing too.
Mm.
Um, that if that same brand did the same thing, imagine that.
Such a big problem to solve for
Mm.
fashion brands.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your time, Ilan. I've loved this conversation. Now, I end my podcast with the same question for everybody, so you were prepared. What brand, any brand in the world, best represents you and why?
Great question. Had a good think about this. I went with a Swiss Army knife. I've had a whole lot of roles over the years, and I'm interested in so many different areas. And I always enjoy getting my hands dirty. So I've tried a lot of different things with copy and doing testing and analytics and running my own businesses. And so I'd say, um, I mean, if you're a Swiss Army knife, you've got all these different tools, and then you just kind of have to find a way. So I thought maybe that was a good one.
And I'd like to probably add another layer to it as well. I know you love traveling.
I
So a
do.
Swiss Army knife, not that you can take it on planes, but it's not from
Point.
Australia originally. So it
Yes,
has traveled around as well to get here to be able to have the amazing tools within
exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
it.
I love it. Great analogy. Yeah, it's done a lot of different things over the years.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, just to
Thank
recap,
you.
so CRO, conversion rate optimization, is extremely important for anyone that wants to go and seriously have a successful e-commerce site, no matter what type of site it is, because it's all about ensuring that what you're creating is going to resonate with who comes, and that it's always being optimized for any changes required over time too, because nothing ever stands still. Now, one of the core things of CRO is all about having the ability to do testing to ensure which one works best along the way. And A/B testing is one of those great ones that can do that for you, because then you can do that true split test, and then you're making data driven decisions. And that really helps you solve the why. What do I have to change and why? Why have they done this behavior and why? Because by able to have those data driven decisions, you're able to know possibly what to test and what you're wanting to get out of that as well. Now, conversion process design is so important as well, but sometimes you do have to work with the marketing people within your organization, might be yourself, and ensure that the brand assets are treated with integrity. But sometimes you may need to make some amendments or changes, and it's just a test. See how that works. You're not committing to that new color or that new shade or that new wording. It's a test to see what resonates best to get the best conversions. So there's nothing to lose here as long as you're not going too far afield. And that's where you come to that middle ground and you really educate the rest of the business to understand how important it is to innovate and test along the way. Some of the great tools, if you're starting out, you can have a look at heat mapping. So, one of those fantastic ones that you can really see what the user is interacting with on your site. You've got different ones from scroll map, click map, mouse map, and also session recordings. And you can see things such as dead clicks, rage clicks, and quickbacks. And a lot of this can also be fed into AI tools to assist you to quickly understand what the data is saying and summarizing it. A free tool that you may want to check out is Microsoft Clarity. It's able to perform some of these for you and it's free, so why not give it a go? Other tools that are great to do at the beginning, but also throughout the whole process of you having an e-commerce site is understanding and really appreciating what the power is of Google Analytics. You can actually get so many fabulous insights out of there to help you make data-driven decisions, such as the funnel, the sessions, even where people are coming from to help your marketing people understand the return on investment for external marketing. So use it and abuse it. That's what it's there for. It's a fantastic tool. But don't underestimate the importance of qual research. And this is all about actually knowing what the journey is. Get your new staff members to go through the journey and pick it apart, purchase that product, take screenshots, try and break it, try and see what you could do to reduce clicks as well. There's so many different things you can do going through the site. Does it make sense with the words? Does the flow make sense? So much rich data there you can do just being hands-on and spending a small amount of time going through the process yourself. Surveys are amazing, whether they're within the page itself or doing it as part of the post transaction. They can be a gold mine. But I have to say, for me, my personal favorite is the sentimental analysis. I am a huge advocate of going and finding out from the grassroots what's going on, how can I fix it, how can I make it better. So this is actually taking the time to either speak to your front line, getting them to fill in information, double jacking if you've actually got a call center, reading through transcripts that come through, and also seeing what the reviews are saying too. And you can use some really cool tools like ChatGPT can actually help you if you throw in all of your web transactions to actually summarize it for you and pull out what the key questions are or the key pain points are or how they're feeling. So use those AI tools as well to assist you and save you all those hours of reading, because let's face it, there can be a lot of them if you've got a large company. And if you can save yourself hours and hours by using some of these AI tools, that's one of the best ways that you can make changes faster. Hotjar is probably a great other tool just to consider that will help you understand your site and also some of the flows that they go through. And just be patient when you're putting in those conversion rate optimization changes. Sometimes things won't happen overnight. It all depends on how much traffic you have coming to your site to be able to see what the impact is. So sometimes it can happen within an hour. Sometimes it might be whatever your business cycle is, 2 weeks or a month. But educate people within your business to understand that. Because if they understand that, they're on the journey with you, and then they're going to be more excited when that time period elapses because they're with you and they know it will take that time. Now, not all changes are going to be great. Not all of them are going to be gold mines. But the thing is, you're learning then to improve for the future what works, what didn't work. So use them as opportunities to improve your site, like really make sure that the revenue is on track, the conversion's on track, your consumers are happy, and just continually iterate over time. Behavior economics is amazing. We're going to be adding in a link there into the show notes so you can hear a bit about another podcast that Ilan has listened to, which has got some amazing insights there. But just remember, conversion rate optimization is about making your site magical, not just for you, but for your consumer. So hopefully you all get golden nuggets at the end of it. How was the wrap up, Ilan?
That was amazing. That was fantastic. It's like you've been doing CRO yourself. I think it was honestly such a good summary for people who haven't got across this much before to learn more about it. So well done.
Thank you very much. Anything more you would like to add to the summary?
Thanks for the chat. I've actually really enjoyed this. This time has flown, which you're having a good time. If anyone is interested in learning more, if they'd like an audit of their site, understand a little bit more about how they can understand more about their customer and improve their conversion rate, I am pretty active on LinkedIn. So love to have a chat about this stuff. So please feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ilan. I'll include his details as well as his consultancy in the show notes for everyone to get in touch. Definitely follow Ilan. He's putting some great tips and tricks up on LinkedIn for you to learn along the way, and practical ones too. So I appreciate your time, Ilan. For everyone else, thank you for listening to More to Marketing. And don't forget to add More to Marketing to your playlist to hear future fabulous guests.
More to Marketing.